guys, welcome to my channel Vinyl Beauty, or welcome back. I'm Debbie if you don't know me. Today's video we're going to be continuing on the discussion around why we buy eyeshadow palettes, or definitely why I buy them anyway. I did a video on this and I talked about whether the theme was what gets us enticed into buying those palettes, you know, more so than the colour story, the formula, the brand. Is it that theme, you know, the packaging and the theme, whether it's an animal theme or whether it's a space theme or whatever it might be. Is it that pulls us in? But today we're going to look at a different element of what attracts me to buying eyeshadow palettes, and might do you as well, and that's pop culture. So whether it's a tie-in with a movie, with a famous person, with a TV show, whatever it might be that's pop culture related, I seem to be here for it. I've gone through my eyeshadow palette collection and I've got so many palettes that fall into this category, so I know this is a pinch point for me. It's something that gets me interested in buying palettes, and if you're like me and you're trying to do a no buy / low buy, then it's something to look out for. But I think it's a great way to showcase my palette collection as well, and you guys seem to enjoy the previous one. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to show you all of my pop culture palette collection. Okay guys, so we couldn't start a video like this without talking about Urban Decay. Now, if you guys have been here for a while, you will know that Urban Decay have been a massive influence in my eyeshadow palette buying for years. I mean, they were the brand that got me interested in eyeshadow in the first place, because in the UK the packaging of eyeshadow palettes was pretty boring. You'd either got the plastic kind of packaging of the drugstore, which was very uninspiring to me, or you got what I considered at the time, because I was pretty young then, old lady brands like Estee Lauder. Not dissing Estee Lauder, they've got some fantastic products, but they were more aimed at kind of the age I am now, I think, and didn't have all of these amazing packagings, and definitely no pop culture tie-ins at that time. Don't think they've ever done that. So not singling them out, as I say, just the first brand that came to mind. But Urban Decay stood out to me because they had these themes and they did tie in with movies and whatever. So I'm going to show you my collection of those first. Not my entire Urban Decay collection. I do have a video on that. It's not got everything in it. I haven't done an updated one, but it's one of the first videos I filmed. It's probably awfully cringy, but I will leave that in the description box if you want to go back and see some of the others that I've got. But just going to pull out a few that are pop culture tie-ins and why I bought those. So I'm going to start with this one, which is, it's not really a palette I suppose, it's more like a collection of singles, but it's the Oz, the Great and the Powerful. So it was a tie-in with the movie. There were two of these. I do own them both, can't find the other one. I think I used most of the shadows up from the other one. It is somewhere in my collection, but it won't look very pretty inside because I used to pan things back in those days. But this one is the Theodora palette. I think the other one was the Glinda palette. And inside you can see how much I did or didn't use this one, because I've still got the eyeliner pencil in there. So we'll just take that out so that that's not falling off. But I used to love when they did these. These are like they're single shadows but pushed into a palette, so you can take those out, and then if you've got lids from other ones of their singles, you can just pop the lids on. There is a beautiful shade in there actually. Whether these are still good to use, because this is pretty old, probably 6 or 7 years old, but I never used any of them, as you can see, so they're pretty pristine. But it's all neutrals, but bought it because it was a tie-in with the movie and because I really enjoyed the look of the packaging. I've also done two Alice in Wonderland palettes, and I have both of them, the Alice in Wonderland from the original movie and from the Through the Looking Glass. So this is the one from the original movie, and these are hella bulky packaging, but they're the sort of packaging I love that Urban Decay do. As I say, if you want to see this up a bit more closer, there is a video where I've sort of filmed overhead, but you've got all that pop-up kind of scene inside, which I think they just do so well. And then from the newer ones, the the inside comes out. This one doesn't, I can't get it to pull out, but that was the eyeshadow primer potion. That's how that used to come in, like the little potion bottles. This one had two of the pencils. Obviously wasn't a favour of green at the time, or didn't like green that much, but now I would be using that one, probably not the black that was in there. It was pretty neutral with a couple of pops in there, and I used to always like quite neutrally colours or kind of pink or purple leaning, so I've even got some pan look in that purpley shade there. But it was a lot of the staples that you would always have, like Urban Cowboy was one of their famous shades, but they've renamed it and it's called Midnight Tea Party in this palette. So they've renamed all of the shades to tie in with the Alice theme, and I just knew I had to have it as soon as I opened it. I just thought it was fantastic. But better done than that, I think, was the Through the Looking Glass palette. This is probably one of my most treasured possessions in makeup. I absolutely adore this. It was just executed so well. You can take the shades out of that one, so it makes it a lot easier for me to hold up without fear of an accident, because I would hate to break this. But inside you've got a mirror and it's just so beautifully done. You've got a butterfly in here, so you open up these little sides here and there's a butterfly inside. It's just a work of art. It's just stunning. I mean, it's for a collector like me, this is just the dream. This is the sort of thing that I look for. And then at this time they'd started doing them a lot more like the Vice palette, so you've got a double-ended brush in there. Just going to pop that out. I don't really care for their ordinary brushes. I don't mind their pro ones. The ordinary ones were a bit scratchy, they weren't the best. I've used this a couple of times. As I say, I just treasure it. I just think it's so beautiful. It's the packaging that got me though, and it's the tie-in with the movie, which I love. But there's some gorgeous shades in here as well, and when I have done a look, I've used these two here. I love the green that's in it. It's predominantly neutral, to be fair, but yeah, I just love the way that the shades look like they're popping out of the pan, just the way that they're packaged. They're not, they're all completely flat, but it's just the way it's been done. And again, they've named things like Metamorphosis, Cake, Bandersnatch, Time, Heads Will Roll, you know, all the names tie in with the movie, but they're shades that they had in their line before, which I just thought was such a genius way to do it. As I say, I was never going to use it, and then I did decide to, so there is one video I think on my channel using this, but it's pretty old. I've even still got the box for it. This is how pristine I try to keep my palettes if I adore them as much as I do. One of you commented that I just like exude love for my palettes, and that's definitely the case. I'm emotionally attached to them. I just love my Urban Decay ones in particular so much. They're just like a treasured possession that I'd try and rescue in a fire. And then it had been a long time after that Urban Decay were coming out with naked palette after naked palette. They're fine. I've got one of the naked palettes. I've got the naked one. I've even got a backup of it when they held the funeral for it and got rid of it. I had to have a backup because I do enjoy that one, but it just became a little bit safe, a little bit boring for me. And all of this exciting movie tie-in packaging that they did in the past just seemed to disappear. And then this came out and I was just so excited. The Game of Thrones palette. I wouldn't say I was a die-hard for the series, but I've watched all of it, and it wasn't because of really the fact that I'm a fan of the series. It was more so the way that it was packaged, but they just paid homage to the series so well with how they did it. So inside you've got all the maps, and then this piece undoes here. This is going to be horrible trying to show this on camera, but you've got the Iron Throne inside, which I think you have to hold up that way to be able to see. Hopefully you can see it. Yeah, this is the worst trying to hold this up, but I bought the entire vault for this collection. I've got all of it, and I've got two palettes because I was on a cruise at the time. This is how crazy I am trying to get hold of these things, and I actually didn't go on a trip that I wanted to go on. I made some excuse to mum that I wasn't feeling great or whatever, just so that I could make sure I was on my phone to snag this collection, and I couldn't get the vault, and so I was so upset, didn't manage to get it. And so I thought, well, I'll just get the palette then. So I bought the palette, And then I went onto their Instagram, everyone was saying it had sold out, but there was 1 or 2 left on Selfridges. So I was like straight onto Selfridges, got the Vault as well. So I do have 2 of these palettes, one that I've used and one that I'll always just keep in my collection forever. So it's not too bad a thing really. This is the one that I've used. I love how this is done. Again, you can pull out the whole thing, which makes it so much easier for filming with and for using really. I think if there was anything I would say about these palettes, they just needed something to cover over the front. Then you could take this with you without having to take all of that bulky packaging with you. But I love how it's all in the different houses. And the colour stories are just beautiful. There's a beautiful icy kind of colour story here, which is stunning. I love this one as well. These 2 are kind of my favourites, but there's not too many mattes in here. There's a lot of satins, but if you've worked with Urban Decay's formula, you'll know that you can blend those satins in the crease, and so it's not a problem for me. I actually really do enjoy Urban Decay's formula. It's quite sheer of a formula. You've got to build it up. It's, you know, it's made for the masses, so anyone can use it, so it's kind of beginner friendly. But there's some beautiful sparkly shades in here, and just getting it out again now just makes me want to use it again. I think I did a 3 looks 1 palette with this. I showcased the whole collection as well that I've got. There was a beautiful highlighter palette with all like the dragon's eggs kind of theme to it. It was just stunningly executed, one of the best that they've ever done, I think. So excited to own this one, and to own 2 of them even is even better. But yeah, that's the Game of Thrones. Do any of you guys own that one? Do you want to see more looks with it? Because I really want to play with that one again. Just looking at it now, as I say, just makes me want to use it. And then just recently, I've acquired the Urban Decay Prince palettes. Now, I'm a girl of the 80s, love my 80s music. Prince played a massive part in that for me. My best friend at the time was a massive Prince fan, and so just listening to When Doves Cry, Little Red Corvette, Raspberry Beret, they were the songs of my youth really. So yeah, so when I knew that there was going to be a Prince palette, I was like, what's this going to be like? Because obviously Prince is with us no more, and everybody was disappointed in it, and except for me. I just think they've done a really nice job of it, because I don't think people understand kind of his aesthetic as perhaps they should. Because what I remember, he wouldn't have worn like dramatic purple makeup. He wore purple clothes, and he was very much of a showman. But the makeup was, you know, mainly black eyeliner and, you know, quite dramatic for a guy, but not purple. So I think they've done a fantastic job of this. I really do. I love the packaging of it. It's sleek, which is unusual for these kind of special palettes that Urban Decay do. And it's got the clasp on the front. It kind of feels like leather. And that eye there that you can see, that's kind of what I remember his makeup being like. So as I say, it wasn't out there colourful. So I don't think they've done a bad job of this at all. I've swatched some of these. I'm not a swatcher. But Raspberry Beret is absolutely beautiful, and DMSR, these 2 that are next to one another, they're gorgeous. So definitely want to play with this soon on camera and show you what you could do with it if you bought it, because these came out, they were like £50 each. I didn't get it then because I was like, it's just too much money for the amount of shadows that you're getting. I'd missed out on the Vault. I was going to try and get the Vault, and when I missed that, I was like, do you know what, Urban Decay always goes in the sale, I'll wait. And I got these for 50% off, and I think you probably still can find them somewhere. So yeah, I'll plan to do a look incorporating those 2 shades fairly soon for you guys. So that's the purple one, and I've got the black one, which I think was more his makeup aesthetic, if I'm honest with you. And that's the shades in that one. A lot more neutral, of course. But that black shade, oh, well, it looks grey in the pan. It's called Bold Generation, this one here. It looks great. When you swatch it, it's a kind of a black base with gold glitter in it, which you just would not expect when you look at it in the pan. Really excited for this one. This shade Groovy Potential as well. It's one of those like mattes with sparkles like the sequin shadows, but I think that in the crease with that all over the lid is just going to look absolutely stunning, and maybe that in the inner corner. So yeah, excited about that one now. And again, these were palettes that perhaps people didn't like too much when they first came out, and I've filmed a look today that I'm wearing right now with a palette that also people didn't like very much when it came out, but I must have a weird kind of preference for makeup, because I seem to like things that other people don't, and I think I'm going to really enjoy this one, so I am going to film with this soon. But yeah, so that's mostly my Urban Decay film and movie and kind of pop culture tie-in palettes, and as I say, some of my treasured possessions in there. And I definitely know that if those palettes, particularly say the Prince ones, weren't a Prince tie-in and they weren't in that packaging and they were just, I don't know, if they were called naked palettes but they were a naked violet or a, I don't know, a naked smoky or whatever, I wouldn't be nearly so interested as I am because they're a pop culture tie-in, if that makes sense. So definitely know that's something that influences my purchasing. I'm going to try and do this sort of just keeping everything together with brands. Now, Kat Von D only did one pop culture tie-in that I'm aware of, and I own it, and it's the Divine palette. Now, I remember seeing Divine on the show The Tube. If you guys are from the UK and you're my kind of age, it was like the alternative version of Top of the Pops. It had like bands on there that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see on Top of the Pops, a little bit more up and coming, a little bit more edgy. Paula Yates used to present it, and yeah, it was a fantastic show, and I remember seeing Divine on that and just like being mesmerised, quite honestly, because I hadn't really been exposed to seeing any men in drag at that point. And I've seen the documentary about Divine. It's very, very interesting. It was on Netflix. If that's still there, then definitely watch it and find out more about him, because he's such a fascinating character. But as I say, always been interested since that point in drag makeup, and a lot of the techniques I do are toned down kind of versions of what drag would be, like cut creases or extended inner corners. Those sort of things are all drag techniques that kind of have adapted into normal makeup use. So yeah, definitely a major influence, I think. Now the shades in here, you'd say, Debbie, why on earth would you want this palette because it's blue? But I haven't used it very much actually, but that shade Baltimore, if I'm going to go for a blue, I like it to be sort of almost like a midnight deeper kind of blue, and I like a deep blue shimmer. There's only one light blue in here, so I can live with that. But it's pretty much, other than that, a grayscale palette, and I love that. I love grey, I love black, I love white shadow. I loved the Kat Von D aesthetic as it was when she owned the brand, so I definitely needed to own this one, and not used it much. As I say, I think we used it a couple of times. I would love to use it again actually. Do you guys own this one? I don't think too many people picked it up. It came out around about the time of the Pastel Goth. I own that one as well, and it's the same shape and size and number of pans as that one. So yeah, really an iconic palette from somebody that's very influential in that world, and just gorgeous packaging on the front as well. Okay, so moving on, drugstore or more affordable brands have done pop culture palettes as well, and I've got quite a number of those, so I thought I'd show you those. So most of the ones I'm going to show you now are a lot more affordable, some of which might still be available as well. So I've got two from Revolution, and they're the Nightmare Before Christmas palettes. So this one is the Sally palette, and I think Revolution did what Colourpop tried to do, but they did it a lot better, and they did it first. The packaging's lovely. The shades, there's so many shades, but yeah, that's the colour story inside. When I see a palette this big, it does put me off of using it. I bought this as a collector's edition, and I didn't buy it to start with. I'd got the Jack palette, which I'll show you in a moment, and I didn't think I needed the Sally palette. And then when I got it, I was like, oh, there's some quite nice shades in here. And the formula's not bad at all in the Jack one, so I probably should pull this out and play with it, to be honest. I think you could get some quite nice romantic kind of looks out of this with the pinks and purples, so maybe it's one I could play with for a Valentine's inspired look, which seems very strange to think of something that's perhaps thought of as a Halloween palette, but to use it for Valentine's Day. But it's just makeup, isn't it? This one I have used though, the Jack palette, and this was the one I was more excited for. If you guys know me at all, you know how much I love this movie and I love Halloween, so I had to own this one as soon as I saw it. It just had to be part of my collection. And this one's got a standout shade. That Sandy Claw shade is one of the best reds I've come across anywhere, but from the drugstore, like, to get a red that's as true to red as that, that's just so vivid and beautiful, you just don't find that. This is fantastic. It's got a colourful side and it's got a more neutral side, and the quality is fantastic, as I say, which you don't always find with Revolution. They are hit and miss, I think, but can normally make them work. They normally require some building up, but this is a really good formula for them, considering the price and how many shades. They did a fantastic job with this. I've also got some of the Princess palettes from I Heart Revolution, and I started to collect them, and then I was like, there's too many of them now, and I'm going to end up with lots of palettes that I don't use, so I just stopped at the 3 that came out initially. So I've got the Beauty and the Beast palette. What attracted me to these is they're like a book, aren't they? I've got the special edition of the DVD of this, and it looks very similar packaging to that, like that book kind of style to it. All of these, oh, this one's stuck. All of these have got the same kind of layout, so you've got face on one side and you've got eyeshadows on the other. Don't know if I like that, because I don't know if you need that many palettes that have got all of these face shades, and some of them, depending on what the colour story are very deep on the face shades. This one's not too bad, but they're not going to suit everybody that wants to perhaps buy the eyeshadow palette, so I don't know if that really works. But I wanted them because they were tying with the Disney princesses, and again, they're something I've not really used. It was just to do with that, really. So that one is the Beauty and the Beast. Also own the Cinderella. That's the shades in that one. It's got a very weird face shade. It's like a grey in there. I don't know if you could do some sort of grey contour with that. It's very blue. Never going to use this one, am I, to be fair. You know, this isn't my kind of shade. So probably the only shade that I really like in there is that Tremaine shade. The rest are a bit too blue for me, I think. There's maybe a teal, that Nightingale teal shade's quite pretty, but doesn't inspire me and my kind of colour story choices. But again, packaging and the fact that it was Disney princesses, that's what made me buy it. And the last I've got is the Princess and the Frog palette. This is the one that's got the really deep shades, but looking at them now, I'm like, I think I could do something really special with those, with a light hand or even a heavy hand, because I like my blush. So maybe I should dig into it for blush, particularly, as I say, for Valentine's. This one's probably got the best colour story of the 3 for me, because it's a lot more dramatic and jewel toned, and that's what I enjoy. But as I say, there's been loads more since then. Haven't kept up with them. I think there's a Mulan one. I think there's a Little Mermaid one. I think there's 3 more, but yeah, haven't got those. I just stopped at the 3, which is not like me because I'm such a completionist. But I was like, how many palettes do you get just for the tie-in with the pop culture, with the Disney princesses? How many do you buy that are just going to sit on a shelf that you're not going to use? So I came to my senses, which is very rare for me. Next one I'm going to show you is from one of my favourite brands in makeup, and I couldn't not include this, and it's the Melt Beetlejuice collection. So there were 2 palettes in the collection. I bought the whole PR box and don't regret it at all. I think it's one of the most special things that a collector like me could own if you're into that kind of goth aesthetic of makeup, but you also love the movie. They just did this justice. It's just beautiful. Every detail, you know, that's what Melt are known for. They just, I mean, the packaging is just, oh, it's just incredible. Don't normally like plastic packaging, but this is heavy, it's quality. Yeah, it's just gorgeous. Even down to the fact that you've got like a film cell kind of plastic insert in each of them. Yeah, that detail just really appeals to me as a collector. So this is the Recently Deceased palette, of course, so purples and greens. I've used this on my channel, did a pretty dramatic look with that not too long ago, I think at the beginning of Halloween last year. My favourite of the 2 though, of course, is the Waiting Room palette, because it's got red in it, and you guys know, if you know me at all, how much I like red eyeshadow. I like black eyeshadow, grey eyeshadow, so this one's just, yeah, the dream. Again, you've got one of those film cells inside, and then that was the colour story for that one. There's a couple of shades that are a little bit too similar. So we've got No Exit there and Obituary, those 2 that are next to one another. In the pan they look quite different, but on the eyes they don't. And then the 2 greys, Tombstone and Shrunken Head, they're very similar on the eyes as well. So I think they could have condensed it down a bit and just made it an 8 pan, but yeah, other than that, absolutely adore this one. It's gorgeous. And as I say, the fact that it was a tie-in with Beetlejuice, as soon as I knew they were going to do it, I was like, melt of the brand to do this. They're going to do it justice, and they absolutely did. They did an incredible job. Okay, one more brand to talk about that are quite prolific with these pop culture tie-in palettes, and they get me every time. I wasn't that much of a, well, they didn't catch my eye as a brand until they started doing a lot more of these, and it's Colourpop. So, and I'm glad, because the fact that they started doing this has got me interested in the brand, of course. So I've got 6 palettes by Colourpop that I would consider to be pop culture palettes. The first one that I ever bought from the brand is this one. It's the Disney Villains Misunderstood palette. So not a time with any specific film, but all of them together really. And yeah, it was the packaging, it was the theme, it was like always more for the villains than I am for the princesses really. So yeah, that was the colour story in that one. I love this palette. I use this one as like an everyday palette, like on the days that I go to work. If I go to work on a Friday, it's got enough kind of dual tone colour about it, but it's got some basic neutrals in there as well. And yeah, I really enjoy the quality of it and the shade selection of it. It's fantastic. Got me into the brand for sure. The other one in that size that I have is the Disney Hocus Pocus palette, the original one that they brought out, because of course they brought out a second one, but this is the original and best in my opinion, and was the official tie-in with the Disney movie. There's going to be a Hocus Pocus 2 this year, isn't it? I'm so excited for that. This movie is one of my favourite movies of all time, so you guys know I couldn't get hold of the palette because it was just ridiculous how quickly it sold out, and then they restocked and I bought it then. And it's that grungy mix of like those burgundy kind of plummy purpley tones and the olive greens that just get me every time. I love this palette. Don't care for the pressed glitter that's in there, but I can forgive it because all the other shades are so bomb. It looks like a high-end palette on the eyes when you use it. It's just, yeah, it's one of the best. Absolutely love it. This year or last year bought the Barbie palette. Now this isn't really my makeup aesthetic, but in the summer I love I like a blue lower lash line and then like an orange or pink on the lid, and of course it had that going on. But I think it was the theme that got me, the fact that it was Barbie and it was like sort of sunshine Barbie. I thought it was quite a collectible little collection, and yeah, just so well done. I just think, yeah, this is what you think of Barbie. The Malibu Barbie kind of packaging. Yeah, it's just beautiful. I've also got one of the Star Wars palettes. I've got the Mandalorian the Child palette. I don't have the new one. I want to get it though, because of being the completionist that I am. I'm just waiting for Colourpop to release something else and kind of pick it up together and get that free shipping. So this one is like an everyday kind of colour story again for me. Pretty neutral for me, you know, the kind of makeup that I wear, but I do like these kind of tones, you know, when you've got greens mixed with browns, and their shimmer formula is beautiful. But I absolutely bought it because it was a time with the Mandalorian, which interestingly for me is odd because I've never seen the show. So I think it was just the cute little child on the front, the fact that I knew it would be something collectible and therefore a bit more special. So if this had just been one of their like 9 pans that just had one of the cute names that they do, you know, and it had just been a green grungy kind of palette, would I have bought it? No, absolutely not. It was the tie-in with something that I don't even watch. See, crazy, but this is me, this is what I do. I've got 2 more left to show you. So we've got the Disney and Tinkerbell. This one I think has to be my favourite that they've done recently. I think you've got no sequin shadows in there, you've got really nice shimmers, you can go pretty deep with it, you can do a neutral look with it. The mix of kind of the more pinky tones with the green is genius, but the packaging is just delightful. It's just, yeah, it's everything you want in a movie tie-in palette this has got. And the whole collection was so well executed, and that's something that Colourpop do so well. And then last but not least, we've got their Nightmare Before Christmas palette, which a lot of people hated and I love. I think it's just so different actually from the Revolution palette. Obviously they're both doing the same thing, but the colour choices are a lot more condensed in this one. Yes, it doesn't have a green in it, but you've got to judge it on what it is, you know, what it has got. And I love these ones with the little tiny pans like this. I love how deep and dark it goes. I love this shade, what's it called? Dear Friend. It's just a weird kind of colour. It's, yeah, the tone of it is great in the crease. Haven't used some of the more bright colours actually. I tend to stick to this side of the palette whenever I've used it, but really enjoy it. But I bought it absolutely because it's a tie-in with one of my favourite movies of all time, The Nightmare Before Christmas, so had to have it. And bought some other bits from the collection as well, but I knew I had to have the palette. So yeah, so they're all of my palettes that are pop culture, movie, famous people, singers, TV programmes, anything to do with pop culture. These are the palettes that I've collected in that genre, and a lot of them, as I say, are in my collection, not to do with the formula, because some of them I don't like the formula of. They're not to do with the colour story, they're to do with their collectability because of the time with pop culture that they have. So I don't know if it's a thing for you, whether it draws you in, guys. I'd like to know that, you know, is it something that you are more likely to buy a palette if it's packaged in a certain way, and if it's a tie-in with a pop culture icon or movie or TV series? I'd love to know. But I hope you enjoyed seeing another element from my collection. I've got another one of these planned to do, which I might film next weekend, and it's fun just to delve into my collection and look at things in perhaps a different way, rather than just saying this is all of my eyeshadow palette collection, which would be horrific to film now because they're all over the place in this room. I keep them in Alex drawers, but they're quite difficult to access and it takes me a while to take everything out. I've got everything all in the boxes, so that takes forever, but it's quite doable to film in these small chunks. And as I say, I think you guys seem to appreciate the last one, so I hope you're going to enjoy this one as well. As we did before, please comment down in the comments what palettes you've got that you've bought in this kind of genre. Love to know if you're on a low buy or no buy. How's it going, guys? Has anything tempted you to buy it? I filmed this eye look today and I was talking about the Pat McGrath Bridgerton palette and how I've never seen the show, but I want that one because of it being that tie-in with the show, which I'm trying so hard to resist. I don't know whether I'm going to manage it. If I have a weak point at any point, you know, when you're feeling a little bit low and you feel like treating yourself, that could happen if it hasn't sold out, because I know myself and I know this is one of the areas I've got to watch. Anything that's a little bit special, a little bit collectible, I'm there. But guys, hope you enjoyed it. If you're new to my channel, I'd love it if you might consider subscribing. I've got more of this kind of content coming. Also do a lot of makeup looks still. I'm not going to stop doing that, but I've been loving just talking about my palettes a little bit more, and I'm definitely getting more views from those sort of videos as well. So thank you so much for watching though, guys, and I hope you're having a lovely day or night wherever you are. Catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.